Good afternoon, this is Matt with PacketTrap. I apologize for the delay. I was having some audio issues. We're going to get started. We are recording today's event, so if you can, mute your phones, mute your computers, whatever you got to do so that noise doesn't come through. I would appreciate it greatly. So would people who watch this in the future. We do have a built-in chat feature with the WebEx, so if you have questions, feel free to hit chat. Can't promise you I'm going to answer them through the presentation, simply because I get distracted easily. But I will get to them at the end of the call. Okay, so just a few slides. We're going to walk through PacketTrap, who we are, where we came from, and then we'll jump right into the application. Hopefully that'll give you a good idea if this is a fit for your business or not. When we got started with PacketTrap PSA back in the, well, really back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, took a couple shots at it. Like anything, there's always problems. We invested some money, hired some development folks, deployed it out to an individual company that had about 110 technicians, and it was a big failure. Second time, put some more money into the tool, more development time, deployed it again, and it was another big failure. So we took a step back and said, why are we failing? Why are we spending this money and this time? And we realized after meeting with some of the users that it wasn't that they didn't want to use the tool, it was just too cantankerous and hard to use. So third time's a charm. We hired a different type of development group, more of a user interface, and they had some really good advice. And they said, keep it simple, allow end users out in the field to make things, to do things really easily, and you should have greater success. We did that, again, third time's a charm, and really the birth of PacketTrap PSA was launched and was pushed out in the early 2000s. So some of our overarching principles, guidelines, goals are right in front of you here. We want to publish and create software that's intuitive, convenient, and immediate. So what is intuitive? Exactly what I said in our example. Our first two tries, it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't easy for the users. Our techs and our people who work for us and with us, we don't need to give them yet another job that's hard to do. And creating something that's easy to use and intuitive helps people just simply record their time, labor, materials, expenses, and move on. Convenient. So what does that mean? Well, again, back in the 2000s, we were talking about tunneling through VPNs and all kinds of different technologies to actually access programs from the outside. Well, it's got to be convenient, and so we looked at leveraging SaaS, or software as a service, to allow us to make a tool that's very convenient. When I'm talking with people on the phone, lots of times when I tell them, you could be sitting on the beach in a lawn chair, with your computer right there in your lap managing your business, and I can almost like hear their ears perk up. But that's how convenient the software needs to be, and I think we've achieved that. And last but not least is immediate. I'll tell you a little bit more about me in the next slide and where I came from and the lessons that I've learned. But immediate means you literally log in and build your business. And again, leveraging SaaS in our tool, you can do that. So a little bit about me. This is not me, but it's a great placeholder to tell you where I've come from and why am I even here. So I started in business at a young age by mistake, really. I was doing some contracting work to a friend of my father's and was running low voltage cabling. And it was a great favor for my dad's buddy to give me some employment. But I also collected the checks at the end of the jobs, and the longer I worked for them, and the more I collected $30,000, $40,000 checks, and my paychecks were under $1,000, I started to think this is probably not the way to go. So I learned the trade. I jumped out and started my own little business. After some time, we grew and grew, and it was exciting. Ended up at a young age deciding to merge with another company who did voice and data. It was a good compliment, and became a partner in a rather large company. Well, we made every mistake in the book, failed at lots of things, and the most obvious piece of that is I'm now an employee of Dell instead of a business owner, but learned a lot from that. So left that company, went to a large enterprise help desk software company, learned a ton about frameworks and best practices, and I learned a lot of really important things there. Also kind of learned big businesses are just as screwed up as little businesses. So I ended up meeting across the street here, actually, at a bar with our CEO. He cracked open his laptop. He showed me this tool they called PacketTrap PSA, And I said, wow, that is amazing. What are you, tunneling through the VPN? What are you doing? He got real technical. He's like, no, it's very easy. Just right here, tethered to my Wi-Fi or whatever the case was. I'm sitting here running the software. I was instantly intrigued and jumped on board. And again, the early 2000s. I've been here ever since. So why do I tell you that? I may tell you some stories about when I was a business owner and some examples to help kind of drive some points home here. If they get boring, I apologize. But hopefully at the end of the day, you walk away with either a chuckle, a best practice, at least, and at a minimum, you know more about PacketTrap PSA. Okay, so without any further delay, let's go ahead and pull up the application and start talking about PacketTrap. Okay, first and foremost, I logged in. I want to kind of set the stage here. We're looking at PacketTrap PSA. Upper left-hand corner is my company name. Now, in my case, it says PacketTrap PSA. In your case, it'll say your company name. But I do want to talk about a few things in regards to users. One of the most frequently asked questions is, what users do I pay for? What kind of users do you have? And it could be a very laborious discussion if it's not handled well. So I'm going to try to get that out of the way right now. So we have 3 user types. Those user types, we've got a standard user, as you can see below in the left-hand corner. We have no login users. So standard users, anybody that logs into the system and manipulates data. Okay, simple as that. A no login user would be, you guessed it, somebody that doesn't log in. Now, if I had a nickel for every time somebody didn't understand that, I'd be sitting on a beach by myself doing something fun. But let me dig into that a little bit deeper. I'll give you an example of how that might be used. Let's say you do business locally with a large company. They come to you and say, hey, we just picked up a new office out in Fargo, North Dakota, a couple guys there. We need you to support it. Well, you don't have anybody in that area, so you do what anybody does. You go start looking at friendly competitors and subcontractors. You pick somebody up that can service your customer, and everybody's happy. So because that person may not get that many tickets, you may just want to make them a no login user. You can still alert them. You can still schedule them. You can still track labor, materials, comments on the behalf of that user so that you can document what you did at the customer site, but they don't log in. The third user type is our customer logins. The way it sits today, unlimited for free. Same with the no logins, right? So you subscribe and you get unlimited customer logins. These are going to be logins that your customers, you give to your customers. They can log in and open tickets through the customer portal. Now going back to our users real quick, and then we'll jump out of this. We've got within the standard users a group of different roles. You can see from the administrator all the way down to the subcontractor. So each one of these roles has got permissions. Our 3 tech roles, the lead tech, technician, and subcontractor, are further governed by this list of permissions. Now going back to kind of our goals and our mission of keeping things intuitive and keeping things easy and simple, well, that's why I have these permissions here, right? Folks in the field have got too much to deal with. They're interested in making a happy customer, making you some money, making you happy, and going home and making their family happy. So this allows us to really fine-tune how they interact with the system and just really remove the noise, right? Maybe there's some stuff you don't care if they see, but you know what? If they don't need to see it, if they don't care to see it, get it out of there. So the big takeaway, guys, I just had to get this 3 user types: standard, no logins, and customers. Within the standard user type, you've got roles ranging from admin down to subcontractor, and within those 3 technical roles, you have a laundry list of permissions. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, just going to jump over to our dashboard. Let's kind of chunk this out into little pieces. So we've done business with folks all the way from mom and pa who work on custom leather furniture in Austin, Texas for a specific Italian manufacturer, all the way to large medical imaging companies who do commissioning and decommissioning of MRIs and CT scans all over the world. And so because we have such a diverse audience, I've had to, over the years, kind of break this down to make it palatable and easy to swallow. So in looking at the blue tabs, we call those the main navigation tabs, those tabs get you into different parts of the application. But really, to keep it simple, those tabs fold up lists, right? So a lot of people I talk with, some have already got a solution in place, others don't, and they're using Excel spreadsheets. So it's very easy for them to understand that, okay, wait a second. Imagine if these are tabs across the bottom of your spreadsheet. You've got your customers, you've got your tickets, you've got your calendar, very similar. But we just put it in a place where everybody can gain access to it, and you can filter some of the permissions, and as soon as you save it and somebody else saves it at the same time, it doesn't become corrupt. So if we look through the tabs, our dashboard is going to be basically a list of recent and pertinent things to the service, maybe the scheduler or the service manager. So we see some past due events, we see today, what's coming up, we see below our recent activity, the recent interactions within the system. On the right, we see our open tickets and our service billing by month. And we also have a personal dashboard. And you guessed it, this is the most recent and pertinent information for this user. So me being the owner of the company, I don't have a lot of stuff going on here. Right? I got one ticket that's open to me and it's assigned to me. But as we see, one of our technicians will build this out as we walk through the demo, and we'll see how this could become really important. Really, it's my dashboard of any announcements, what's my schedule look like today, tomorrow, and what are my open tickets, and I can filter them by certain conditions and statuses. Customer tab is going to be exactly that. List of customers and contacts, really simply. Right? They're listed alphabetically. We can get to them rather quickly. Tickets, list of tickets in certain statuses and conditions. Our calendar is going to be a list of appointments, or what we call schedule assignments in more of a calendar UI or interface. We've got equipment. This is going to be your customer on-prem equipment. Now, there needs to be a little bit of discussion here because people think like, oh, my equipment is the stuff I sell to my customers. Not really. You can do that, but this is really customer on-prem equipment that you service on behalf of them. So if you're in the IT space, it's routers, servers. If you're a compressor guy, it's the compressor or the actual capital equipment is what I like to call it that you support. We'll also take this equipment and fold it up underneath the customer record. We expose it here because there are folks that say the first thing they ask the customer when they call is, what's your serial number? We expose it here globally so they can get to that quickly. But in most cases, if you want to see the customer equipment that you support for an individual customer, you can get to that through the Customers tab, and I'll show you that. Our Contracts tab is just going to be a list of contracts, right? Contracts you have your customer. Block of hours, unlimited maintenance agreements, annual maintenance agreements, or retainer like an attorney. The Billing tab is going to be basically a list of tickets that need to be billed and tickets that have been billed in the past. Last but not least, our Reports tab, list of reports, right? Canned reports. You can see a big section of my demo reports that I create when helping folks troubleshoot or doing webinars. So in the section up on the left is our custom, the rest are our canned reports. Okay, so once we got a better idea of how this is all put together, depending on your role, you may have access to all these tabs or just a subset of the tabs. And within the tabs, for example, if I'm a tech, I may be locked down to just my tickets that I'm assigned or related to, right? So same with the customers. I may be locked down to just my customers. So again, not only do we have the permissions, but those permissions come into play within the tabs. Okay, so let's talk about how today you typically take calls. In a perfect world, they'd all be self-service. Nobody'd ever call. We wouldn't have to have anybody sitting at the front desk to answer those calls. But it's not a perfect world, right? So there's 3 types of media. Let's talk about 4 types of media that we can bring tickets in from. I'm going to jump over to our settings real quick and talk through the first one, which is email. Now, you're not going to see anything super sexy here, but I do want to land here and talk through the email Dropbox. So emails. Let's say you're at dinner tonight having steak and a glass of red wine, and you get an email from one of your VIP customers that says, hey, can you take a look at this for me tomorrow? Well, you could create a contact, and the contact would be this email address, either the default one we assign you or one that you come up with or that you have. And you could simply just forward that email to a contact within your phone and send it right in to PacketTrap to create a ticket. You can also forward a support@yourcompany.com right to the Dropbox. So anytime a customer emails, that jumps into the Dropbox and we create a ticket. I've also seen customers who want the same look and feel consistent throughout their website to include maybe request for help or support request, and they'll build out a contact form that's very eloquent and has the same theme. And once that's filled out, they hit submit, pops in as a ticket within PacketTrap. So these are the 3 types of scenarios that I've seen as far as email go on the email Dropbox and how people can filter. Well, that is pretty much the 3 of them. The next would be the customer portal. And to get to the customer portal, I'm just going to go to my account. P-O-R-T. Oh, I should have had that up already. I apologize. And we'll just log in as a customer. So this is where your customer would log in. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about this towards the end. But what I want to show you is creating a new ticket. So here, you can expose a tab for your customers to log in, fill out the information, and submit a ticket. So that's the second way we can bring tickets into the system. Now here, there's some options that we can turn on and off. There's probably more fields in this demo that I'd like to expose to my customer, but it gives you an idea that there's some flexibilities there. Okay, last but not least is what we all take on a daily basis, which is a phone call. Okay, so phone rings. What do you do today? Well, one of the big benefits that I've seen over the course of my time here and reflecting on my previous position as an owner is exposing all of this to everybody within the organization. I hired a gal, master's student from Denver University. She'd recently had a child and was looking for some temporary work. I could get her for a discount. I thought, great, she can help me manage the office. Brought her in. Her name was Lisa, by the way. So I brought Lisa in, and I said, here you go. Here's the phone. Here's your desk. Let's get rocking and rolling. After about 2 weeks of coming back to my office and finding 40 yellow stickies on my computer monitor, I finally decided to take Lisa to lunch and say, Lisa, you're this really smart woman and 10 times more educated than I am. Why have you been reduced to leaving yellow stickies on my monitor? She's like, well, Matt, you haven't given me any tools to help you. You're afraid of me getting into your accounting system. I'm not going to go into the warehouse and try to find the keys for that locked, fireproof file cabinet you have in the back. So that's, you reduced me to what I can do. And so I learned a really important thing there. You got to give people the tools to succeed. And in this case, Lisa could have easily picked up the phone and got right to my customer list and helped any customer. So we walk through a phone call. Let's say the phone rings. And in this case, Lisa picks up the phone, and it's Mayhem Smith over at Allstate Insurance. Imagine I'll get sued for that one day. But anyway, she could have easily just pulled up the customer record, and here we've landed on the Overview tab of the customer. The goal of the Overview tab is very much like the dashboard for our service manager. It's really the dashboard for the customer. It's going to show us the most recent pertinent information about this customer. So we can see our primary contact. We can see the last 3 requests. So some of those yellow stickies that Lisa left for me back in the day was, call Joe, he has a question about the service we did last week. Well, again, if she was properly armed with information, she could have jumped in, looked at the service request, said, Mayhem, was it helping you with the Dell laptop? Yeah, it was. Let me drill right into that ticket. And again, she's armed with information to hopefully help this customer. Not only does that take some of the stuff off my plate, man, your customer really starts to think that you got your act together. All right, so go back to our customer, talk a little bit more about this, then we'll get a ticket going through the system. So we see our primary contact, our primary location. We see the last 3 tickets that this customer did. If we want more history, we just pop over to the History tab. We see any recent comments. We see that this customer's got a block of hours that's, in this case, overdue by an hour. We see additional information, such as who's the original salesperson, who's the default technician, and maybe who's the service manager. We see lead source. This is an example of a custom field that I added here just for demo purposes. You can add custom fields to the customer account record. We see how we build them. We see they have a default rate of service labor. And last but not least, we see how we notify this customer. So we've got global notifications for the customer. Let's say I have one customer says, hey, you're killing me with email. I trust you. Stop sending me so much email. You can come in here and actually specify how this customer individually wants to be alerted and notified. Okay. Some of the additional tabs we have, we track multiple contacts, multiple locations, running list of contacts. Comments. So this may be, hey, Joe called, said, need to do this next time we go out there. Here's where we fold the equipment up underneath the customer. So if I want to see specifically what equipment we service for this customer, I just go to the Equipment tab. If I want to take it a step further and take a look at that piece of equipment, I can drill into that piece of equipment, see information about that equipment, like when did we install it, where did they purchase it. Here's an example of a bunch of custom fields that we had done on a previous demo that are hot links to take me right to certain places, as well as I see my service history for this equipment. All right, contracts, obviously going to be a list of our contracts. Attachments are going to be anything we want to upload to this customer. So if I have a Visio diagram of their floor plan and I want to upload that, I can upload it as public or private. If it's public, it'll port over to the customer portal. If it's private, it stays internal. Here's our full history. We can quickly sort, search, and filter the history. And last but not least, we have customer-centric reports. So reports specifically for this customer. Okay, so now that we better understand the customer, let's walk through kind of a day in life. Again, phone rings. Lisa quickly goes to our customers tab. She finds the customer in question. She pulls up the customer. She's landed on the overview. She's armed, ready to help this customer. And Mayhem says, hey, I got a problem. So one way we can create a ticket is simply by clicking here under the actions to create a ticket. We get a quick description. Again, we track the multiple locations, the multiple contacts. So we specify the location and the contact we're going out to help. On the right, we can see we have a type field, which is really like a category. All these values are customizable, as well as you can remove. This is what we call an optional built-in field. So you can keep this on the form, but again, referring back to folks down in Austin, Texas, who were doing the leather furniture, they wanted to remove all of this, and so they took out the detailed description, they took out the type, as well as the priority. So theirs is very simple. But these are 3 fields that you can expose or take off, as well as there's a host. If you go to Settings, General, go to the tickets, you'll see the customizable fields you can put in there. And again, these values are within these lists are customizable. Here, if we're calling in and we're tracking equipment for this customer, we can link this piece of equipment to the ticket. Here's the custom field. Where did you find us? And now, how do we bill them? Do we want to take this out of a contract or make it billable? For this example, we're just going to make it billable. So the next step is to save and assign. Now I'm going to walk through a workflow here that's not an imposed workflow, meaning you don't have to follow this, but it fits 60–70% of the workflows out there. So I'm taking the call, trying to help the customer. Now I'm going to go schedule an appointment. So here, because Ted is the default tech that we saw at the customer level, he's automatically populated as the person we want to send. So we can look at Ted's schedule by looking at his daily calendar and just book the appointment if we want from his calendar. Or if we want to look for the first available, let's say, take Ted out of there and we'll find an available person. So I'm going to drag over our availability grid. Here we go. Doesn't have a lot of information populated in it, but what we're looking at is my technicians over the next 5 days between the hours of 12 and 6. So if I want to see something a little bit different, I might click on these options and say, you know what, I just want to look at my techs, and this is a pretty big deal, so I want to get out there in the next couple days, and we work from 8 to 6. So we populate it here, but the customer might throw us a curveball, right? We're going out to help this guy with his iPad, and he's, I'm in meetings until 1 o'clock for the next couple days, so we're going to actually just look at the time between 1 and 6, apply our options. We can now see our availability. I can tell the customer, hey, I can send Sean, or I can send Ted this afternoon. Because he's the preferred tech, we'll pop in Ted. Just adjust this to 6 o'clock. Here I can put any notes for my technician. That'll be alerted or sent out in a notification to them, and click Save. Now, a couple of things happen behind the scenes here. One, we can send emails and text messages to Ted, letting him know that he's been assigned to this call, as well as scheduled to go out and meet with his customer today from 4 to 6. We can send Mayhem some notifications and emails that say, hey, we created a ticket for you. Here's the number. And also, Ted will be out there to help you today at 4 to 6. And last but not least, we have some workflow within the tool that says, hey, when you create an assignment on a ticket, go ahead and automatically change the status to X. And in this case, we're going to change it to assigned. Again, this is not an imposed workflow. It's something you can choose to do. In this workflow, what we're going to see happen, we're going to say, hey, when we add an assignment, change the ticket from new to assigned. When we complete the last incomplete assignment on this ticket, change the status to work complete. So at this point, Lisa is done, right? Until she hears from the field or until she hears from the customer, we know this is assigned, and that means to us that we're hands off, and she can go now process some new tickets or get some work complete tickets out for billing. All right, so let's jump in as Ted. I'm going to pull up our little iPad here, this little emulator. Each user gets the ability to log into the regular edition or the mobile edition. So let's go look at our dashboard, repopulate that. So here we go. In our cases, what we see most of the time is people use both. In my world, guys would take wagons into the belly of a building, and they take their tools and their thermos and their lunchbox and their laptop. They'd set up camp for the first 20 minutes of the job. When they were done, they pack all that up. They take their little wagon out the front door, and the CFO goes, "Hey, I need some help with my iPhone." Well, they're not going to unzip their laptop. They're not going to reestablish a connection. You're going to lose that labor. What I've found, a lot of folks get a lot of value from the mobile because they're tracking those little calls or those what we call haul calls when they happen. And maybe they still don't bill for them, but they at least document what they did, keep better customer records, and keep the customer honest. So at any rate, here's the mobile edition. I'm going to show you on the iPad just because we have a little bit more real estate. But on the iPad, I've seen a lot of folks just use a regular login. But in this case, Ted, the night before, can log in, see what his schedule looks like for the next day. Where's his first job? He can get a little bit more prepared. In my world, I had windshield time, which was I would tell all my techs to come into the office. We'd hand them paper, and then they dispatch back out. Huge, inefficient waste of time and resources. Here, Ted can jump in, see what he's got going on for the day, and go out and take care of folks. So here's our first call, this test. If we just did labor, Ted can simply just click on complete my assignment. We're going to add labor. We'll actually change our status to work complete. We drop down, we pick the labor, how long we were there for. Here we can indicate what we did, right? So what did Ted actually do on site? He can make that public or private. If it's public, it's going to be available to the customer as well as it will port over to your, let's say, QuickBooks invoice. So any notes go here and just simply hit save. So if Ted just went out and did labor on this job, he gets a little bit of positive reinforcement, attaboy, and now he jumps back to his dashboard and goes out to the next job. All right, so the next job he goes out on is a little bit more complicated. So he's going to drill into the ticket itself. Here he can see his assignment, it's incomplete. He can see the customer, he can see where he's going. We actually have some location notes here. They ring the bell at the gate and enter this code. We know who we're contacting. We can click the email, click the call if we're running early or running late. We see the details of the ticket, the equipment we're supposed to service. Who's a salesperson, for example? Maybe I need to call him and ask some questions about this certain install. So in this case, we needed to add some material. So he's going to pop in, pick from the list what he used. Again, these comments can go over to your accounting system. I'm going to drop in his material. We'll just use an example of an expense. Say he drove 17 miles. And now he's going to want to complete his assignment. So here, he completes his assignment. He's going to change the status to work complete. Add his labor. Any comments. Make those public or private again, and click Save. So he, in essence, just added labor, materials, expenses to this ticket. He gets the attaboy, good job, Ted. Now, he might not be done. He might have to take a before and after picture. Maybe there was something really messed up in the computer room. You want to take pictures of it just to help describe the problem. Now, here we can see there's a private attachment. He can also do a new attachment. Ted could also present this to the client, say, Mr. Customer, here's the work I did. Review it with the customer. Now, there are a few different forms that they can present. Here's just an example. You could present it to Mayhem for a signature. Click Submit. The ticket now has the signature. This can't be forgotten or lost or left underneath the bench seat of your truck. It's now captured forever. Okay, so Ted's popping back to his dashboard and taking care of that last call, but I think you get the gist. Other things that Ted can do, he's got a schedule up here. He sees that he's got 11 tickets that are assigned to him that are incomplete for the day or older, which means Ted is really falling behind. He has access to recently viewed tickets and customers. He can get into his calendar and maybe book an appointment to have lunch with mom tomorrow. You can see what he's doing by the day, by the week. He's got a lot of capabilities to the mobile device. All right, so let's take a deep breath, come back up, and let's just log in. Let's pretend the owner. So Lisa was our dispatcher. Ted jumped in, got the job done, took care of our customer. Now Matt's going to jump in and take care of the rest of the process. So We can be alerting people this whole time depending on how you want to alert. So I might have gotten an email that said, hey, Ted just completed a job. Status went from assigned to work complete. That may be my cue to jump in here and process the ticket. Or if we're doing a large volume of work, I can jump in and say, whoa, I got 13 tickets. I want to get those out and I want to get paid on them. So I'm looking at all my tickets that are filtered out by work complete. Here, really what I want to do is jump in and take a look at the tickets. So here's a ticket 1322. Need help with testing the VM environment. We can glean a lot of the information from the overview, but I might want to just look at the items. So what did we do out there on site? These are all billable. Ted did mileage, entry-level workstation, and 3 hours of service. What's this look like from a billing perspective? Client owes us $327. We see we made $198 profit, 60% margin, not bad. We've got one attachment, which is that signed entry form that was signed by Andy Smith on this date and time. I like to call that the CYA, which is cover your tail, right? So if the customer rolls back on you and say, hey, I didn't approve this work, well, we've got a signed agreement right here from you, Mr. Customer. And last but not least, we have the log. And the log is going to show you whatever happened cradle to grave throughout the life cycle of this ticket. Now, I am going to spend just a couple minutes to talk through our email, what we call the end-to-end email collaboration tool. Here you can see all these log entries. Now, as we send out emails to customers and text, they can respond to that email and it'll jump back in here and update the ticket. And you can respond straight from the ticket to send that notification back out to the customer and or technician. So what that really does is brings all that collaboration between customer tech and dispatch, brings it into a nice thread and puts it right here under the log. Again, can never be lost, forgotten at the customer site. It's right here anytime you need it. All right, so if this passes my approval process as a business owner, I'm going to just quickly jump in here and change the status to closed. Once I do that, what's going to happen is this ticket is going to jump over to our billing tab. And the query is simply, show me all my tickets that are ready to be billed, which are they're tickets that are closed, the customer owes me more than $0, and they have not been exported or billed. The next step is to create a quick billing batch, choose what tickets you want to take over, make sure your batch options are selected here. We're going to just take this over to QuickBooks Online, for example. I haven't done this in a while, so hopefully my connection is still valid, but we'll save that batch, and we'll transfer it over to our billing system. And it failed. That's okay. I kind of expected that. So basically what happens, and let's see if I can't find a document real quick. Well, basically what happens is we send over these tickets to QuickBooks Online. Say, QuickBooks, do you have this customer? If so, create an invoice. We create the invoice, we put in the bill to, the ship to, and then each one of the line items here will be represented in our invoice in QuickBooks. So this looks very similar to what it looks like. So we get our tech notes. That's what I like to call like the meat within the nut. Like what do we actually do on site, right? Why is the customer going to pay us? I'd had the opportunity at one point in time to meet with the CEO of Cardinal Health, and he had said, hey, your invoices have got to be impeccable, or guess what? I tell my folks not to pay them. Push back, delay pay. So capturing those notes from the technician and having impeccable invoices helps us get paid quicker and faster. So hopefully this is over into our, I can invoice right from here by just clicking this printable view here. Oops, do that again. Here's what we call the billing summary, very similar to an invoice. I can email this right out of the tool if I'd like, or I can move it over to an accounting system. All right, so cradle to grave, that gives you a good idea of the workflow. We can create tickets from customers. We can create tickets from our tickets tab. Anywhere you see new ticket, you can create a ticket. So I'm going to stop for a second there and see if there are any questions, since I've already gone over by about 10 minutes. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, I do have a question on the QuickBooks piece. I'm going to actually go to the next question while I search feverishly for a document that I should have already pulled up. The next question is how much is the QuickBooks connector from a pricing standpoint? How much extra do we charge? And as well as the mobile. So to answer that, we don't charge extra. if you subscribe to the tool, you get the QuickBooks import, or you get the import tool as well as the QuickBooks Online tool, and you get the mobile. So each user can choose if they want to use the mobile, the desktop edition, or both. So we don't have any add-ons. And yeah, the follow-up question is, can you use QuickBooks versus QuickBooks Online? Yes, you can use either. All right. Next question has to do again with QuickBooks. So let me pull up this document so I can share it with you, so it makes a little bit more sense. Bear with me 1 second. All right, we're getting there. All right, this is kind of an old document, but for the most part, it still works. So again, kind of walking through that communication, we say QuickBooks, we've got some tickets that we need to create invoices from. Give us some invoice numbers. So the invoice numbers are given to us. We then port over the invoice date, which you can adjust within PacketTrap. We ask, do you have this customer? If QuickBooks says yes, great. So create that invoice with this customer. If not, we go ahead and create the customer within QuickBooks. We'll send over the bill to as well as the ship to. If the PO is applicable and you added it within PacketTrap, we'll send the PO over. In the first line of our invoice, we make reference to the request that started this, that created this invoice, as well as a number. We put in the short description, and again, the PO if applicable. Next, we'll put in the items, the labor, material, and expense items. In this case, our first one is a labor item. We put in the date that it was added to PacketTrap. We put in the item name. That's our match within the accounting system. We put in our quantity. We then put in the description from PacketTrap, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and our tech notes. So you tested a unit found to be faulty, replace with a new unit. In this case, it was applied to a contract, so it's no cost. We then drop down and put in a part and an expense of mileage, total it up, throw in the taxes, make memo back to the request that caused this invoice to be created, and it can be flagged to be emailed or printed. So that's pretty much how we go through that QuickBooks piece. The one thing I didn't note, if the item does not exist in QuickBooks, PacketTrap's going to go ahead and create that item in QuickBooks for you. Okay, so seems about it on this questions. Really what's next and what are the next your action items. If you haven't signed up for a trial, you can feel free to sign up for a trial at PacketTrap.com. You've got this email for sales. If you haven't already engaged with a territory manager, sign up for a trial and they'll reach out to you. If they haven't, send an email to sales@PacketTrap.com. You can also go to our community. We have a community at PacketTrap.com. Just go to PacketTrap.com, go to resources, PSA community. It's basically an open forum, as well as videos. I think we've got about 22 videos out there right now, documentation and communication through not only with us, Dell, but the customers out there. So appreciate your time today. Hopefully this was a good help. If I can help, feel free to send me an email. It's matt.work@quest.com.